Hello, I'm Ed, and I'm going to show you how to make this awesome vegan soda bread with walnuts and raisins.
First things first, go and turn on your oven and make sure that you're setting it to 200 degrees Celsius or 390 degrees Fahrenheit. Before you start, you ideally need the following items. 1. A sieve. 2. A spoon or a spatula of some description. And 3. A bowl. In terms of measuring equipment, you're going to want either cups if you're American, or if you're a Brit or probably anywhere else in the world, you're going to want a measuring cup or cylinder, whatever it is, and you're going to want a set of weighing scales. And finally, you're going to need a baking tray with some baking parchment paper, and you're also going to need a wire rack to put the bread on when it's cooked. Then for the dry ingredients, you're going to need 200 grams or 1 2/3 cups of plain white flour. You're going to need 150 grams or 1 1/4 cups of wholemeal flour. You're going to need 1 teaspoon of fibre husks, 1½ teaspoons of bicarbonate of soda, a handful of raisins, and you can chop these if you want to, if you don't have hands. I'm sorry about that. You also need to then add 1½ teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of sugar. Next, you need to get the walnuts out. We're talking about 15 grams of walnuts or 1/8 of a cup once they are cut up into pieces. So that's it. Put them on a chopping board, get a nice sharp knife and chop the living bejesus out of them. And once that's done, you're going to want to toast them on a medium heat in a small frying pan and just wait until it starts to smell like popcorn. That's when it's starting to warm up and cook, and give it, I don't know, a minute after that. Take it off the heat and let it cool down for a bit. Once the walnuts have cooled down, chuck them in your mixing bowl, and you can either use your spatula if you're a bit of a pansy to mix up the mixture.
Ooh, you're hard.
Or my preference is to use your hand. Next, measure out 275 mils of your dairy-free milk, which is about 1 1/4 cups. Then add 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, or lemon juice, or white wine vinegar, whatever you've got lying around. Give it a stir and then chuck it in with your dry ingredients. Now, be careful. Do not put all of it in one go, because it may be that you need a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on your mixture at this point. So, be cautious. Put in 80% of it and start to mix it around, or put half it in and then mix it and then add a bit more, and be cautious with it, up to you. But the point is that you want to add it slowly until all of the mixture comes together into a slightly sticky ball. If it's sticking to the sides of the bowl too much, then you've added too much milk, and you'll need to add a little bit more flour to make it less sticky. If it's still not coming together, then you haven't put enough of the liquid in. Just add a bit more liquid, but be really cautious because it does sticky up pretty quickly. Next, get your baking tray with a baking parchment paper and sprinkle some flour on it. Then you're going to want to put your sticky ball, the bread you've made, onto the tray. Next, you're going to want to get a sharp knife and cut across in the top of the bread. It needs to go almost all the way through, talking about 75% or 3/4 of the way through, and that will really help the bread cook on the inside. You can also sprinkle a bit of flour on top if you want to. Now, chuck that bad boy in the middle of the oven at the right temperature and leave it for 25 minutes. Once that time is passed, you're going to want to get it out and push a toothpick all the way through the deepest part of it to make sure that it's cooked. Obviously, if anything sticks to the toothpick, it's still not cooked all the way through. Chuck it in for another couple of minutes and do the same thing again. When I say a couple, that means 2. Once it's cooked fully and no longer sticking to the toothpick, take it out of the oven and put it on the wire rack. This is really crucial because if you leave it on the tray, it'll end up with a soggy bottom. And that's it. You can now enjoy your toasted walnut and raisin vegan soda bread. Give it, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour to cool down, or break it open straight away, stick some butter on that bad boy and enjoy it. You can have it with almost anything, and it is such a good alternative to yeasty bread. Also, here's a final tip for you. If you are following this recipe because you're trying to cut out yeast, then what you can do whenever you slice the bread, make sure you siphon off the breadcrumbs and make them into panko breadcrumbs. You can then use them in other recipes.
Well done. You've made it this far through the video. You've obviously learned how to make the bread that's behind me, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more about why this recipe is important for me in particular. So I suffer with seborrheic dermatitis. It's an imbalance of yeast and bacteria on your skin that means that I get, on your face in particular, which means I get red blotchy bits. And I've noticed that over the years that I can actually control it a little bit with diet. One of the main allergens for me, unfortunately, is yeast, which obviously is in normal bread. And this is why this recipe in particular is a saving grace for me. I love bread, and this is a really tasty bread, or an alternative to the normal yeast type breads that you have. It uses bicarbonate of soda instead of yeast, hence soda bread. And yeah, I find it very helpful for me. So if you're just here to make a tasty bread that's vegan as well, then congratulations, here's your recipe. If you're here because you have seborrheic dermatitis and you're trying to control the different allergens that you're eating, then I hope this helps. And thirdly and finally, if you take this recipe and tweak it, let me know if you've had any successes or any unsuccesses in the comments down below. I'd really like to hear about it. And a final little plug from me and this channel. My name is Ed Barnett, and I'm going to be creating whatever I want on this channel in essence. So it's going to be a mixture of food or home stuff or being a father or anything that's on my mind in essence. So if you want to join me on that journey, then consider subscribing and drop us a comment below to let me know that you're tagging along. All right, have a lovely day, and I will see you again.